Good of you to join us at this hour. I'm Daniel Che, here to provide you with the latest. The presidential office officially rejected a proposal from Parliament to dismiss Kim Jae-soo from the post of Agriculture Minister. Opposition lawmakers voted for the motion just a month after Kim was appointed, but the top office explained he has been cleared of all allegations in his parliamentary confirmation hearing. The presidential spokesman said the lawmakers did not even consider the agriculture expert's ability to carry out the role of a cabinet minister. He added President Park's decision to reject the proposed dismissal also took into account the ruling Saenuri party's request that she do so. On Saturday, the presidential office called the opposition party's actions regrettable. And over at the National Assembly, Korea's main political parties remain deadlocked over the opposition party's passage on Saturday of a motion to dismiss the agriculture minister. The ruling Saenuri party had boycotted the vote, allowing the opposition to pass the motion 160-7. The Saenuri lawmakers say they will sit out all parliamentary proceedings, including the annual audit sessions that open on Monday, until the National Assembly Speaker steps down, and the main opposition Minju Party of Korea apologizes for pushing through the motion. However, representatives of the three opposition parties have agreed to go ahead with the audit as scheduled, even if the ruling Saenuri party chooses not to show up. With Korea's anti-graft law set to take effect on Wednesday, we're now seeing more of the fine print. On Sunday, the Foreign Ministry announced partial exceptions to the law's strict limits on accepting gifts and, of course, meals when it comes to official diplomatic activities. The reasons? For one, the Foreign Ministry says exceptions are necessary for effective diplomacy. But also the gifts and meals in question are paid for by foreign governments and international organizations with their own budgets normally. The ministry worked with the Anti-Corruption and Civil Rights Commission to come up with specific guidelines to keep the new law from discouraging legitimate diplomatic activities. The so-called Kim Young-lan law prevents those working for the government, media, and schools from accepting meals priced higher than 30,000 won or around $27, gifts worth more than about $45, or congratulatory and condolence money over $90. A new location for the U.S.-based THAAD missile defense system will likely be announced this week after much uproar over the military's original choice. And to further strengthen defenses against growing threats from the north, top officials from Seoul and Washington are expected to meet next month. For details, let's turn to our Oh Se-young.
It's likely that a golf course in Seongju County will be chosen this week as the site for the U.S. anti-missile battery intended to counter growing threats from North Korea. Local opposition to the original THAAD site led to the South Korean military agreeing to reconsider the location. A defense official said Sunday that the evaluation of 3 possible sites is almost complete, and the decision is expected to be announced later this week. The new location is widely speculated to be the Lotte Skyhill Country Club, some 18 kilometers north of the Seongju County office and far from populated areas. However, if the golf resort is announced as a new site, it will likely be met with widespread protests from residents of nearby Kimcheon City. The U.S. Terminal High Altitude Area Defense System is designed to take down incoming ballistic missiles, and from the southeastern county of Seongju, it could cover a range of 200 kilometers. To strengthen measures to counter the North's evolving nuclear and missile threats, South Korea and the United States defense and foreign ministers will convene in mid-October. According to a government source in Seoul, the two parties are expected to discuss Washington's extended deterrence policy. In other words, its commitment to mobilize all military capabilities, both nuclear and conventional. During the 2+2 meeting, the ministers are likely to put that pledge into a joint statement, as well as discuss stronger sanctions and countermeasures against the regime's continual provocations. Oh Se-young, Arirang News.
In just 3 to 5 years' time, North Korea could have the technology to mount a nuclear warhead on a missile that could reach as far as Seattle on the U.S. mainland. That's according to former head of the CIA, Michael Hayden. In an interview with a Japanese daily, he criticized American policies against Pyongyang, saying it's now impossible for the U.S. and Japan to stop the regime and urged Washington to consider alternative plans. Hayden added the deployment of THAAD in South Korea is a must to counter North Korea's provocations. Turning to the latest on Hanjin Shipping, the world's 7th largest shipping company that is now under court receivership, Hyundai Merchant Marine is planning to buy key assets of the troubled shipper. According to our Hwang Ho-jun, the move by Hanjin's rival is part of its own restructuring plan.
Hyundai Merchant Marine, South Korea's #2 shipping company, started work on Sunday to acquire key assets belonging to Hanjin Shipping. The news comes less than a month after the world's 7th largest container carrier filed for court receivership. The acquisitions are also a part of restructuring at Hyundai Merchant Marine, which has its own debt problems and recently ceded control to its creditors, including the state-owned Korea Development Bank. The decision for HMM to take over Hanjin's assets is meant to minimize the global shock caused by Hanjin Shipping's downfall, especially for foreign exporters who have scrambled to rebook containers with other carriers ahead of the retail boom that accompanies the winter holidays, including Christmas. Hyundai Merchant Marine is receiving detailed consulting from third-party business firms in order to discern which of Hanjin's assets are healthy. Hanjin currently operates 97 container ships, 37 of which it owns, and the other 60 it's chartered. It's the chartered ships that Hyundai Merchant is looking at buying. They're relatively newer and in better shape. Specifically, it's eyeing the ships that handle routes between South Korea and the United States, which have been dominated by Hanjin. Hyundai Merchant Marine is expected to announce its asset buying plans in November after the business consulting process is over. Hwang Woo-jun, Arirang News.
Shifting our focus to the race for the White House, presidential candidates Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump are neck and neck ahead of their first televised debate set for Monday night in New York. The latest national poll from ABC and the Washington Post show Democratic nominee Clinton with a 2% lead over her Republican rival. That lead has narrowed, however, considerably in recent weeks and is well within the poll's 4.5% margin of error. Monday's debate at Hofstra University is drawing comparisons to the Super Bowl or even the moon landing in terms of anticipation. Some 100 million people, including 73% of registered voters, are expected to watch it. The debate, with no commercial interruptions, will be moderated by NBC anchor Lester Holt. Police in the U.S. have apprehended a suspect in Friday's shooting at a shopping mall in Washington state in which 5 people were killed. Authorities identified the suspect as Arjan Jetin, a 20-year-old green card holder from Turkey. He was taken into custody on Saturday, local time, after police reviewed security camera footage and identified his car. The man's motive is still unclear, but police are not ruling out links to terrorism. Meanwhile, 8 people were injured in a shooting in Baltimore on Saturday night local time. All the victims are expected to survive. The police call the attack a premeditated act of retaliatory violence in response to a shooting earlier this month that killed 1 person in the same area. They are looking for 3 shooters who fled the scene. More than 6 decades have passed since the Korean War ended in armistice, but the remains of 12,000 soldiers killed in action are still unaccounted for. It's a race against time for the South Korean military to find and return the remains of those brave heroes to their loved ones. Kim Yeon-bin has the full story.
Soldiers cross the civilian control line into rough, mountainous terrain, where troops are busy excavating the remains of soldiers who died in the Korean War. They're focused on identifying them, but they also have to distinguish them from non-human material detected underground.
Human remains are different from things like tree roots in terms of weight, composition, and so on, so we're able to see them.
During the Korean War, there were countless frontline skirmishes in which the dead were unable to be recovered. To this day, the remains of 12,000 soldiers killed in action are still unaccounted for. Since March this year, the remains of 50 have been returned to their loved ones or descendants. Excavators also find many other objects, such as bullet-pierced military gear and trumpets used by Chinese soldiers.
The Chinese used these trumpets to confuse our troops both mentally and psychologically. They used to beat on drums and blow on trumpets while they attacked during the night.
The remains they find are sent to the military central identification laboratory for DNA testing to confirm their identity. But even with modern technology, there are over 9,000 remains still unidentified, as the military has DNA records for only 30% of the families. Time is of the essence, as the soldiers' direct family members are getting older. And as they pass on, so do hopes of identifying the dead. Kim Yeon-bin, Arirang News.
Now a look at the weather before we go. Expect cloudy skies in the central region in Korea on Monday, and light precipitation up to some 30 millimeters on and off throughout the day in southern parts of the nation. Temperature-wise, Seoul starts things off at 20, Daegu 19, Busan 21. The mercury will then rise all the way to 29 in the capital, 26 in both the City of Lights and the southern resort island. And now let's check out the weather conditions in other parts of our world. That concludes our newscast for this hour. Thank you for watching. Have a smooth transition to a new work week.